I wonder if, as a documentary filmmaker, you want a movie to be as hot as possible, so that people will talk about it and people will go and see it. And having Julian Assange at the center of the film is about as hot as you can get. But do you regret a little bit that it had to be a movie about Julian Assange? Because as fascinating a character as he is, some of the ideas that he raises and that are raised in the film are more interesting and much more important. Julian, at the end of the day, is a fascinating character, but the ideas he raises about society and the effects that his ideas have had are really much more important. Is it almost distracting away from those ideas to make a movie with him at the center? Because he's so kind of glowing and, shiny.
Well, I mean, this goes back to what we were talking about actually at the very beginning, and a number of people did criticize me for personalizing these issues. But frankly, I'm just not going to apologize for that. This was a story about a moment in history. And actually, when I got into the story, I realized that a key part of the mechanism, after all, we're talking about a leaking mechanism here, and the whole idea of how this works, I realized the key element of this mechanism was missing, i.e. the leaker. So a great part of the story isn't Julian Assange, it's actually Bradley Manning. And then what happens to Bradley Manning, and I was criticized to some extent for putting in some of, Chelsea Manning's details in terms of, his gender identity, the fact that he had suffered greatly as a kind of diminutive, effeminate guy in a very macho military. But the fact was, there was a mystery at the heart of this film. Julian had posited that there is a perfect leaking mechanism, which is this website that he had created, and that would always preserve the anonymity of the leaker and allow the leaks to be published in a kind of international extra-legal way. Great. But it turns out that his most important source was outed. How did that happen? Well, it turns out that his most important source actually needed somebody to talk to, like many sources do. So while it was a perfect idea, going back to the idealism issue, and a perfect machine, it didn't mix well with human beings who have other needs. And so...
Yeah, it's a perfect machine, but humans are not perfect machines.
Right.
Quite imperfect.
And so in that way, while you could understand the perfect, the perfect simplicity of the idea, it didn't work with Bradley or Chelsea. Chelsea needed somebody to talk to, and so she reached out to Adrian Lamo, who turned out to be exactly the wrong person to reach out to if you wanted to stay anonymous.